After months and months of what some would call a very aggressive marketing campaign, the time has come to relive some of our childhoods in a very specific way. This marketing mirrors those commercials that interrupted our Saturday morning cartoon viewing to encourage all of us, but especially little girls, to get their parents to buy them a Barbie. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. Check. Okay. All right. This is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing Barbie. Barbie, written by Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, directed by Greta Gerwig, starring Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling, America Ferrera, Rhea Perlman, Will Ferrell, Kate McKinnon, Issa, Hari Neff, Alexandra Shipp, Kingsley Ben-Adir, Simu Liu, and Helen, Mirren. And for a complete cast listing, as always, you can check out the link in our show notes. I am not here alone. I am here with
Mikala Jamison.
Mikala Jamison. Who are you?
I am a writer, and I write about body image on Substack at Body Type.
Excellent. More on that later. We'll let you plug it. We just saw Barbie by Mattel. Excellent production. A lot of hoopla, a lot of hype behind it, a lot of marketing going on. It is a movie that tells a story about Barbie going through some sort of scenario in which she has to cross over from the real world from the Barbie world into the real world, and experiences what I would describe as an existential crisis. We won't do too much spoiling, but we're going to talk a lot about the movie. If you don't want to hear anything at all, I'd say wait. This review actually is coming out a week after Oppenheimer due to editing circumstances. So there's going to be a lot of people, hopefully, that have seen the movie by now. If not, go ahead and wait. But we're going to talk about it a little bit, but we won't get too spoilery. With all that being said, Mikala, what did you think of the movie?
I feel like I'm just like drifting on a pink cloud right now. I am so delighted. That's truly the only way to put it. Yes. Walking out of the theater.
Yeah, I agree. I think this movie was fantastic. I enjoyed it from beginning, the middle, and the end. I think that I'm not speaking in hyperbole when I think this movie should be around during award season. I think that costume design and set design obviously should be on the table. I think there's some acting choices in here. I think there's some directing choices in here. And I think there's Best Picture in here. I'm sitting here watching it and I'm like, I know they like to come out with a lot of heavy stuff at the end of the year, but this was a fun summer movie that did a lot of work. What do you think?
Wow, Best Picture, pulling out the big gun. I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, going back to the set design and the costumes, that was the first thing that I think really pulled me in, was the detail with recreating some of the toys, some of the looks. I mean, they did their homework 100%. I said to you during the show, I remember that. I remember like the fold out ambulance.
Wild.
Yeah, completely. Like, I forgot that I even played with those things, and then they're represented on the screen. So that right away, like, they had me.
Yeah, I think the merch aspect from beginning to end, the team at Mattel, the team at Warner Brothers really knew what they had. And I think, and I'm not sure who the executive was on this, but they really let them toe the line a lot, or if not cross the line when it comes to, corporate structure versus like the everyman. What did you think about like the idea that Mattel was the big bad guy in this movie, like corporations, patriarchy? Well, we'll get into patriarchy separately, but what did you think about the idea that like Mattel is kind of poking fun at themselves in this?
Yeah, I feel like everybody in the movie's really in on the joke.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be with something like this because it's so easy to go after. You're going to go after capitalism. You're going to go after the toy company. You're going to go after Barbie as a concept. Like, you cannot do this movie if you are not in that joke and willing to poke fun at yourself.
Yeah. Dude, I had my colleague, Linda Holmes, talks about I don't know if you watch Black Mirror, but there's an episode in which Netflix makes fun of itself by calling itself Streamberry. And Linda pointed out, and I thought this was important, and this came up while I'm watching the movie, does Netflix get to be in on those jokes when they're also the ones that are doing the oppressing and the creating of AI and all that? And it made me wonder if there was somebody at Mattel that was like, I mean, we don't care. We know we're going to sell a lot of Barbie anyway. You can say whatever you want about us. Do you think that they're actually a progressive company now? They're like, nah, we want to take down the structures too. Like, where did you land on that?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, the Black Mirror thing. Yeah, I'm remembering that now. I mean, I think two things can be true. Yeah. I think that this movie can really have a message and say something and be an incredible creative pursuit. I also think this movie does not exist without all the marketing we've seen behind it. Like you said, Mattel knows, all right, we can be down, we can be good with the joke, but also like we don't care what happens because we know we're going to make that money. Yeah. So I don't think you can pal around with them too hard for like being in on the joke. Like good for them for being in on it, but like it's still Mattel. Yeah. They're still making millions of dollars on this.
And they kind of point to that. They allude to that towards at the end of the movie when they suggest a new Barbie, and one of them says it's a terrible idea. And before we get it out, somebody else says we're going to make millions, and they're like, yeah, we'll do it, whatever, exactly. Because they don't ever actually turn the camera towards the fact that the entire executive board is all men, or that and they're making up all of this stuff about women, led by a very funny Will Ferrell, which. In a return to Will Ferrell form, it was great to see him in that. But like they don't talk about that. But there is a lot of discussion about patriarchy in this movie. How did you feel about that?
Whew, I mean, that's a big one. And I'm not going to get too spoilery, but they really thread the needle perfectly on this, I think, without going. I don't feel like I'm bashed over the head with anything. Yeah. We're touching on the stuff in that regard that we need to touch on. Yeah. But I think it's done, I can't describe it any way other than elegantly. Mm-hmm. Like they give you the laughs, they give you the message. Yeah. The performances, I think, take it to a place where it's more moving than it deserves to be. I think just with the Ken and Barbie performance with Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, there's something about it where it just doesn't feel clunky in that way with the patriarchy thing and a lot of the other like heavy stuff that they touch on. And it's like maybe this movie, like they made me forget about some of the like squickier stuff because it just was so fun. Yeah. Like it's just a perfect movie going experience so that I almost like don't want to think too hard. Yeah. Which is almost like what Barbie keeps being told throughout the movie, but I'm just like, I don't know, slam dunk, so fun.
I agree. I think when you talk about threading the needle, I think it's hard to overstate how perfectly they do that because they made me feel and think while I was laughing and having a good time. It was very much like, I'm thinking about, there's a movie called Pleasantville that came out, which I think this has elements of Pleasantville, of course, elements of the Lego movie. I don't know if you've seen that. You should. It's very funny, very good, yeah. Pleasantville, Lego movie, kind of like a mashup in a lot of ways. There's lots of jokes in this movie, but the poignant moments are just so poignant. And there's one point in there where a woman is giving a speech about what it is to be a woman. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, she was nailing point after point after point. It was funny, and it's funny, like always being a black person, I'm always like, I understand some of this, but as a man, I also, and it's like hard to like separate the two, but let's looking at like a marginalized position, looking at it hits it, but at the same time, you're right, it's like pulling out a little bit. Was there any ways did you feel emotional in any of the parts? Like, especially when they get to the mother-daughter stuff, when they get to the parts, I mean, I found myself getting pretty emotive towards the end when two people get to meet each other, and like it's pretty. It kind of, I wasn't exactly hammering, but it was just definitely a tearjerker. Oh, yeah. Did you feel emotional in any parts of the movie?
Yeah, without giving anything away, there was a part closer to the beginning where Barbie meets a person in the real world and they have this beautiful exchange and it's super short. Yeah. And that was when I was like, I am bought in. It's such a simple, short exchange, but that was the first time I got emotional. Yeah. Some of the mother-daughter stuff, 100%. And the movie does this thing where they're kind of flashing back to one character's interactions with her daughter. There's a whole montage of just girls playing with dolls. Yeah. I mean, that stuff was getting me. I played with Barbies. Yeah. Like, I played with Barbies late, too. Up until, like, through middle school, almost high school. Yeah. And it was really just, I don't know, pure nostalgia. Like, what else can you say? It's hitting you right there where you live.
Well, and see, the thing is, too, like, it's, if dudes are being honest, especially dudes with sister, I'm a dude with a sister. Mm-hmm. I had Ninja Turtles. My sister Marilyn had Barbies. Mm-hmm. They played together. You know what I mean? Like, we would make huge scenes. I had the turtle blimp. She had the Barbie van. We would, like, they'd be out going on dates and hanging out and having a good time, and they'd be sprawled all over the little room of our house where we're just, like, playing with them. So, like, there's something about building those scenes, and I could definitely feel that emotional resonance in those moments. Yeah. With all of that being said, and actually, let me just say one more thing. Was there anything, any of the acting performances, anything of that stood out for you?
I gotta say, Gosling.
He did it.
He did. I mean, I gotta figure out how to say it. Like, he's selling the Ken as bimbo thing.
Yes.
He's landing his, like, facial acting, and he's so expressive in this, which is so funny because you're thinking about plastic toys that have no expressions. Yeah. Seeing that Ken idea come to life on someone like that can give a performance like he does. Yeah. And also, Margot Robbie had to cry like 40 times in this movie. Yeah. And she...
Real tears.
Yeah. I mean, what they are... You can just see, like, what consummate performers they are. Like, this doesn't work if you don't have those two performances, truly.
There is a world in which this is an entirely different movie because they choose actors that are just kind of, like, having a good time, not necessarily taking it seriously. And these are people that... And, I mean, applause to Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach because they wrote a script that works. And as soon as I saw that Greta Gerwig was attached to this, I was like, this Barbie movie might be good. And like I've never seen, she did Little Women and she did the one Lady Bird, yes. But she's done several movies that just are very funny and emotionally resonant. And this one like really does strike that chord, but it can't be done without those performances. And even the backup performances, all great. Simu Liu knows exactly who he is in this movie. Kingsley Ben-Adir, like just fantastic in this movie. Issa Rae.
Issa Rae has this one line. If you are listening to this, you know what it is. Yes. She just, it's like Issa Rae has entered.
Towards the end of the movie?
Yeah, towards the end. I mean, there's so many things, maybe it's like a frustrating listen to just be like, we're not going to say it, but it's so great. But really, like that's
if you've seen it, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, this movie just really delivers on, they've built up such momentum to get people excited for this movie. Yeah. And I think that 1 million people are going to go, and everyone's going to be talking about these little beats because they're really memorable when they hit. So I think in that regard, like, they completely succeed.
Absolutely. Okay, so with all of that being said, we have a 5-star rating system here at Leaving the Theater. We have 1, I hated it. 5, I loved it. It was perfect. 5 is perfect. 3 means that you would see it again. So that should give you some explanation on what 4 and 2 is. Okay. We use decimals here too. Not a problem here. You can do whatever you like. Where does this movie land for you from 1 to 5? Say it with your chest. Don't feel shy. Your score is your score.
All right, I'm going to give it a 4.4.
Okay.
There are a couple things. There's a little bit too much musical for me, I will say. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. I don't know why I'm giving it a 4.4. Yeah. That's where I went.
Okay, that's perfectly fine because I give it a 4.5. All right. So we're right in the same neighborhood. I think a 4.4 is perfect for this movie. I think a 4.5 is perfect for this movie. Luckily this summer I've been able to see a lot of movies back to back, and I think I gave Joyride a 4.25, and I had a little bit of a better time in this one. Not by much, but like it was a little bit of a better time in this one. There's probably a lot more fanfare, and this one benefited from having a lot of goodwill from me just walking in and sitting down in the seat. So I definitely give it a 4.5, and I think a 4.4 works for it well. It's definitely a high 4 movie. It's definitely better than Oppenheimer, and we should see both of them at the Oscars. What I would love to see is that they go head to head to box office, Barbie wins, and I'd love to see people be nervous about whether or not Barbie can beat Oppenheimer at the Oscars, because I think it can. I think that voters are going to look at their ballots and say that Barbie's not a serious movie and it shouldn't be in there, and they were like, oh, well, it can win the costume and all that, but there's acting going on in this movie, and I think it was well done, and I think we should see casts from both of these movies at the Oscar season.
It's also incredible that we have this Barbie versus Oppenheimer thing happening now. Yeah. If that comes back at Oscar time, we're talking about these two movies again, head to head, generating all this buzz about these two films again, and it's so hilarious because the whole joke is that they're completely opposed to each other.
Completely, yeah. And not only that, if the strike is over by then, I could see this like being quite the topic of interest and something that gets people watching the Oscars. Now, before I let you go, you are a writer. You have a newsletter called Body Type. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I write a body image newsletter called Body Type, and I write about all things related to body image, fitness, eating, weight, things like that.
Where can we find your newsletter?
You can find me at bodytype.substack.com.
Did you see were you surprised by any choices they made in this movie about Barbie, about bodies?
Yeah, they touched on it a little bit. I think it would be they'd be completely remiss not to.
Yeah.
There's a big speech where there's a little bit discussed about like thinness, and you have to try to be thin but not too thin.
Yeah.
Not a ton of body diversity in the movie.
Yeah.
I was very curious how deep they were going to go with that.
Yeah.
I did see a Barbie in a wheelchair. That was actually a thing that Mattel did create.
Yep.
There was a Barbie that was a plus-size Barbie. But beyond that, you're looking at typical Barbie bodies in this movie. I'm curious if people are going to, raise critiques of that. They didn't really drill too hard on any of the body stuff. It was more just straight up like the perfection of looks, like the stereotypical Barbie look, the Margot Robbie look.
I agree, and I think that there will be. They've done enough in this movie that those conversations will probably be quiet, and the sour grapes that we will hear will be stuff that even makes the woke stuff us be like, all right, come on, man. Like, you can't get everybody. So we'll see what happens with that. I will say I thought I saw a flash of a Barbie who had that was an amputee, and I thought I did. I put up my hands to rewind the movie. But I forgot I was in the theater. So
when you're at home.
Exactly right. So with all of that, Leaving the Theater is a production of OhitsBigRon Studios. Alexandra Ketch of Bias Studios mixes the show. Thank you, Alex. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about Barbie or Mikala Jamison, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at OhitsBigRon. That's at OhitsBigRon. You can find out more about this show and other OhitsBigRon Studios shows by following us on Instagram at OhitsBigRon Studios and on Twitter at OhitsBigRon Stu. That's STEW. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening. And thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. This was so fun. A body image newsletter called Body Type, and I write about all things related to body image, fitness, eating, weight, things like that.
Oh, that's it? I thought you were going to go deeper.
I'm sorry. I thought you just wanted me to give an intro.
Yeah, you can just talk go as long as you want.
Okay.
It's your plug. Wait, where can we... Leaving the Theater is a production. With that, Lord Jesus. With that...